Are you behind on your mortgage and possibly heading into foreclosure? You're probably looking for some answers. We've got many for you today. Joining me today are Patti Berens from Coldwell Banker Realty and Lori Batista from Guaranteed Rate Affinity. So we all know that there's lots of issues that are going on with people who are going into foreclosure. And Patti, what are some of the questions that you often get asked as they head into foreclosure?
Honestly, when somebody calls me and they're concerned that they're going to lose their house, it's mostly me asking them a few questions and giving them a little bit of guidance. One of the first questions is, how many payments have you actually missed? If you're just behind in one payment, or if you're behind by 3 payments or 4, that's a whole different scenario. The most important question would be, have you actually spoken with your lender? If you've gotten behind on your payment, even if it's just 1 month, pick up the phone and call the lender. Talk to them. If you're behind several months and you've received some messages from the lender stating that you're behind and they're going to file for foreclosure, you need to know anyway from the lender, have they actually filed the foreclosure with the county that you're living in? Foreclosures and notice of demands have to be filed in the county that you reside in or the residence resides in. And you need to know from the lender, have they actually filed that? And then the most important question is, do you want to keep your house? The answers to any of these 4 questions will determine the direction that I can guide somebody into their next step. Lori, assuming they've called the lender, assuming they know that they've filed for foreclosure, excuse me, is it possible for them to even keep their house? Is that even an option?
Well, I would like to back you up a bit because maybe they have and maybe they haven't filed foreclosure yet. So as you mentioned, the number one thing is to talk to your bank, your servicer, whoever holds your mortgage. And I know that a lot of people tend to kind of go inside yourself when stuff like that is happening, but communication is the number one thing you can do. So there's a difference between what you can do before and after foreclosure has been filed. So what I would say is, before foreclosure has filed, maybe you're 1, 2, 3 months behind, call them. The biggest thing is, if you can afford your payment or some variation of your payment, you may qualify for solutions such as a loan modification, a second mortgage where they take the balance that you owe and they defer it to the back of the mortgage in the form of a second deed of trust, sometimes with interest, sometimes without interest, that you can pay off when you sell or refinance. There's times that they'll just add it to the back of the loan. And then there's times where maybe your income has changed, it's dropped, and you can no longer afford the full mortgage, but maybe they can modify it, turn it into a longer term loan, and allow you more time to make those payments back. So the best thing to do is to call them well before a foreclosure is ever filed. That's when they can help you the most. Once a foreclosure has been filed, it does not hurt to still call them. They can still do these items, but now you've tacked on some extra legal fees, and it does make the process more challenging. I will say, if you have gone behind on your mortgage without permission from your lender, meaning you didn't call them in advance, you didn't tell them, I'm having a hardship, can you help me? Can you allow me some sort of deferment with permission? That changes whether or not you can refinance the home. If you have gotten permission, then that changes everything. We can sometimes come in and help you refinance, or maybe even buy a new home later if you had that permission and we can document it. If you didn't, then you're considered delinquent, and that's going to reflect on your credit and all of that. There was times in the past where, with permission from the creditor, they may not even report delinquencies on your credit. So that's why it is important to call in advance. After the foreclosure process has started, if you were delinquent, no bank is going to come in. Well, I can't say no, maybe, but the risk of a new lender coming in and refinancing you is not very good on our side. So odds are you're probably going to be deferred back to Patti on different solutions as to how you can save your home.
So, Patti, is it better in this market, since it's a seller's market, to actually sell your home and put it up for sale than go down the foreclosure route?
I would say that depends. Definitely, depending, if you bought your house less than a year ago, we'd have to look to see how much you owe and whether you'll end up upside down, which means you owe more money on your home than what we can sell it for today by the time you've paid all your fees. Because selling a home isn't free. It does take money to sell a home. But if you've owned your home for at least a year, I think there's a really good chance that you're going to walk away with some money in your pocket. If you've owned it for more than a year, definitely you should have money in your pocket, and you should look at selling your home rather than taking the route of foreclosure. There's a lot of great reasons for that, but we also need to talk about timing. A couple of years ago, I had a friend reach out because they were behind on their payments, and they were trying to decide if they should sell now or if they should try to hold on to the house so that they could do some repairs and we could take advantage of the PCS market. Plus, they weren't ready to relocate. They were probably about a year away from relocation. And if they had sold at that time, they wouldn't have been able to find a rental in Colorado Springs because they were behind on payments. It had affected their credit score. And at this point in Colorado Springs, you almost need credit scores that are good enough to purchase in order to get a rental. So what they did, I recommended they speak with their lender. They were able to work out a payment plan with their lender. We were able to keep them paying on their mortgage for about 6 months. It gave them time to do some repairs to their house. And when the sale rolled around, we were able to put their house on the market, and it actually sold for much more than asking. They were able to pay off their mortgage. They had enough money to put a year's rental down, and they were ready to move. And they were able to start their life over, and they didn't have a foreclosure.
That's
so
nice.
So it was a matter of talking to them, knew what they wanted to do. We discussed, and in their particular case, they had several dogs, which was another concern, because that would have been a rental concern because they had so many dogs. So for them, it was better to work with the lender, put off the sale of the house for 6 months, and it worked to their advantage. More recently, I had somebody else reach out to me, and unfortunately they had waited a little too long, and their foreclosure had actually been filed with the state. But by working with an agent, we actually sold their house. They weren't able to take advantage of the market. We were now in a position where we were a little more rushed because we were trying to beat the actual foreclosure date. And so although they did make some money and avoided foreclosure, again, that is a plus in and of itself. Their scenario was a little bit different because they waited a little bit too long. So the first thing is reach out to me. Let's talk a little bit and call your lender. See how far they are in the process.
Yeah. Don't bury your head in the sand.
No. The other option right now is And Lori, I'd like Lori to address this because they might actually be able to sell the home that they're behind on payments on, have enough money to pay cash in another area, another state, or Lori, is it even possible for a homeowner to actually sell the house they're behind on right now and then purchase another house and have lower payments and have avoided foreclosure? Is that even a possibility right now?
It is a possibility. It's going to come down to, again, whether or not you, I don't want to say intentionally went delinquent. I don't think any of us like intend on not paying our bills. But if you contacted your bank in advance and got permission for a deferment or a forbearance, and we can document you had the forbearance, there are certain guidances where, say, conventional, not to go too nitty gritty into the details, but conventional allows for you to just sell the home, it's done. And then as long as we can document you had a deferment or forbearance, you can potentially purchase again. FHA is a little bit different. There's some guidelines where if you haven't made 3 months payments past the deferment, then we have to jump through manual guidelines. And all of this is really going to come down to whether or not those late payments were reported on your credit, which is part of the reason why you want to talk about deferment or forbearance, because basically it's permission to go behind, and they'll give you so many months, say 3 months, and then you go behind again. If you're truly behind, probably not. You're probably going to have to wait for 12 months past your last payment, whether you sold, short sale. Well, short sale and foreclosure are different as to how we treat those. Those are actual events that you're going to have to go anywhere from 3 to 7 years, 2 years for veterans. There's different timelines that you have to wait from those events to be able to purchase. So definitely stopping it and selling it is going to be your best bet, because then usually you just have to wait 12 months of on-time payments to be able to buy again. So it's all circumstantial, but once you foreclose or short sale, that's a completely different timeline on there.
I did work with a veteran once that had a bankruptcy, and I realize this is different than a foreclosure, but they did have a bankruptcy on their record. We were able to work with a lender because they were able to prove a reason for a bankruptcy. And I've actually had this twice with 2 different veterans. We were able to work with a lender. They were able to show proof of the reason, like a lost job. One actually worked in an industry that had they worked in the oil industry, and when we had some changes to our oil industry regulations, that the bottom fell out of that industry, so they had to go into bankruptcy. The veterans, there are some lenders that will work if you can show proof of a reason. There is a possibility actually after a bankruptcy to be able to purchase a home within what is the time period, Lori, after a bankruptcy before usually a veteran can get another VA?
So both bankruptcy and foreclosure do allow what's called extenuating circumstances. Every lender is different on what they consider as extenuating circumstance. For example, a major medical event that made it so that you couldn't work with is probably the easiest extenuating circumstance. Typically, divorce is not considered an extenuating circumstance because it was a choice, for lack of better words. But sometimes employment, stuff like that, can count towards it. I do want to make a comment on the bankruptcy topic because I had that on here to mention anyways. There are a couple things when you are in foreclosure. Typically, the only way you're going to get out is to pay that loan off in full, or before the cost to cure time comes, come with the chunk of money you owe, plus the legal fees, which is typically a lot of money. We're talking $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. Most people in distress don't have that kind of cash, so then the only option is to sell. There is another option in which I will say consult an attorney, a bankruptcy attorney, because they can show you ways where maybe filing a Chapter 7 where all of the debt gets wiped away, or Chapter 13, depending on how much income, where you're making payments back, you can save your house via a bankruptcy. And sometimes you can get emergency orders in place up to the day before it's going to go under sale. So a bankruptcy could be a way to either halt it, temporarily give you more time, or solve the problem altogether. You can file bankruptcy on a home. I may not be a lawyer, I just play one on TV, so definitely talk to an actual bankruptcy attorney. But it can stave off the foreclosure in its tracks. It might just be a temporary order that's in place that can give you more time. But the reality is it can help you stop the foreclosure proceedings, and you can actually still make an agreement with your mortgage. You can catch up on your mortgage and your delinquency and start making payments again. And you can actually keep that home after having filed bankruptcy on it, which actually means in certain cases, you're not actually still liable for that loan. So you could walk away at any time, or you could keep paying it and sell it later because you still own the home. You just need to still be responsible for the debt to catch up. So you can't just stop payment, do a bankruptcy, and live in the house forever. But it gives you an opportunity to catch back up, or to be allowed the freedom to walk away and not have that debt chase after you.
Something Lori mentioned, and it's important enough for us to reiterate. Don't be an ostrich. If you're behind on your loan, ignoring it isn't going to make it go away. Be proactive. Call the lender, because if any one of these options that we've discussed today, potentially working with the lender to try to get caught up, or putting off the sale for 6 months until you're a better position to relocate or get more money for the sale of your home, any of those options, because you didn't actually go into foreclosure, is going to cost you less money. Once the house has been filed with the county for foreclosure, now you have to get attorney fees involved, and that Lori mentioned numbers of $10,000 to $30,000 more is what it's going to cost if the house is foreclosed on. So just being proactive, picking up the phone. If you need some guidance, just to discuss your options, call me. Call your lender to see what your options are. That's going to save you thousands rather than just avoiding it, because the problem is not going to go away. It's just not going to go away.
Sticking your head in the ground will cause the sheriff to come to your house after the foreclosure and take your personal belongings and put it on the curb. That's what happens after a foreclosure, after the bank takes it back. You've now lost all your rights. And I don't want to see that happen to anyone. And so there are absolute options. Of course, it's always going to be better to take care of it before foreclosure, not just for the fees. So once the foreclosure is filed, it's now public records. Anyone can see that you're in distress. And this is going to bring out the people who, quote unquote, want to help you, but really this is where the wolves descend, and they really come out to take advantage of you in your situation. So Patti, can you talk about like some of the scams, and some legal, some illegal, like some of the ways that people are going to try to take advantage of you if you're in this situation?
Absolutely. As Lori said, notice of foreclosure and notice of election demands are public record. There are people who watch for those and check those records on a daily, weekly basis. They come out by lists of what's happened. They also watch for death notices. They watch for divorces. There's just a lot of people watching for these notices that are part of public record. Once those notices come out, they're going to reach out to the involved parties, and not all of them are going to be illegal. You know, the truth of the matter is they're trying to get a good deal. They're trying to make money. And so what they're going to do is reach out to you and say, hey, we noticed, would you be interested in selling your house? Let's keep a realtor out of it, keep costs downs on both sides. I'll give you cash and you won't have to foreclose. There's nothing illegal about that. There's nothing necessarily morally wrong about that if that's the way you want to go. The reality is, at least pick up the phone and talk to a realtor. It's not going to cost you any money, because I can almost guarantee you that the amount that they just offered to pay you is going to be much less than you would have made in our current market. I was actually at the DMV once about a year ago and heard somebody talking to the DMV representative about this exact thing, and how happy he was because he was able to make some money off the sale of a house, and everybody was good, and he mentioned the amount of money that he sold his house for, and I didn't want to tell him he could have made thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars more than that, even if it had been in bad condition. But you're also going to have people who, this was a scam, and it continues to be a scam, that'll come out of the woodwork and say, I will pay your mortgage for you, but I need for you to sign a quitclaim deed and put my name on the deed for the home. Do not do this. The minute you sign a quitclaim deed over to someone, whether that would be a relative or somebody you've never met, somebody who says they're looking out for your best interests, or somebody who's working a business deal with you, you've just given them your home, and there's no way to get that back. So do not ever sign a quitclaim deed in a situation where you are in a distressed sale, or you've just lost a loved one, you're trying to come up with payments. Now, there are great uses for a quitclaim deed, but this is not one of them. And that would be you would want to definitely pick up the phone and talk to somebody before you do that. Talk to an attorney. Okay. Cash buyers will come out of the woodwork, say, we'll buy your home, any condition. And that's true, and that may be the best option for you. But again, the reality is you may be leaving some money on the table. Pick up the phone, talk to a realtor, at least find out what your home is worth before you just give it away to somebody. Lori, is there anything else from a lender's perspective that might be that homeowners should be aware of if they've gotten into this unfortunate position?
Yeah, I think we've covered a good chunk of it. Every situation is unique and different. No two people are going to walk through this the same. And so seeking out individuals who can help guide you. Also be careful of just Googling. There are companies out there that are going to come off as foreclosure prevention companies. A lot of those, they've become federally regulated in the last 15 years because of what happened well over a decade ago. But the bottom line is, when you're in distress, people are going to try to take advantage of you, and you need to be educated and talk to professionals.
Remember, we all understand, professionals understand, that nobody buys a home with the intent to go into foreclosure. But sometimes life happens, and you want to reach out to somebody, get the information that you need to make the best decisions for you to navigate this very difficult time. And sometimes working directly with a lender can be frustrating, and it's good to have the advice of somebody who's local and knows the process to assist you with that situation. So feel free to call if we can help any way we can. Sometimes we can't. That's the reality. If you've waited too long, sometimes you just have to go through the process. But if you're early enough in the process, there may be ways to avoid that foreclosure, that bankruptcy, and take back control of the reins of your life.
Well, I thank you both for your time today, and if you have further questions, please give Patti a call.